Welcome to Xi Jinping briefing. The content of the briefing includes Putin Bristles as other leaders criticize Russia's aggression in Ukraine. Wednesday evening news briefing, tax burden to hit new post-war high. China wants to deepen everlasting good ties with Russia, Xi Jinping. Xi Jinping seems to be making peace, but he can't stop talking about war. Putin's speech at virtual G20 full of false narratives, event ignored by Biden and Xi. Putin bristles as other leaders criticize Russia's aggression in Ukraine. New York Times. Russian President Vladimir Putin has accused Western nations of having a double standard in their response to the conflict in Ukraine compared to the conflict between Israel and Hamas. In his first address to officials from the Group of 20, G20, leading economies since the start of the war in Ukraine, Putin called the conflict a tragedy that must be stopped and stated that Russia had never refused to engage in peace negotiations. He also highlighted the plight of civilians in Gaza and accused Ukraine of rejecting peace talks. The war in Ukraine has caused divisions within the G20, with Western nations pushing for condemnation of Russia's invasion. Wednesday evening news briefing, tax burden to hit new post-war high. Telegraph. The main rate of national insurance in the UK will be cut by 2 percentage points, according to Health Secretary Jeremy Hunt. However, the tax burden on the British public is set to rise to its highest level since the Second World War. The tax cut will take effect from January. Meanwhile, it has been announced that the number of businesses shutting down in the UK has exceeded the number starting up for the first time in 12 years. China wants to deepen everlasting good ties with Russia, Xi Jinping. South China Morning Post. China's President Xi Jinping has vowed to deepen the country's everlasting relationship with Russia. During a meeting with top Russian lawmaker Vyacheslav Volodin in Beijing, she said that China was ready to work with Russia to continuously deepen our everlasting good neighborly relationship, comprehensive strategic cooperation and mutually beneficial win-win partnership. The pledge is similar to one made during Russian President Vladimir Putin's visit last month. She said that he hoped the two countries' legislatures would strengthen the exchange of legislative experience and provide more complete legislation support for bilateral cooperation. Xi Jinping seems to be making peace, but he can't stop talking about war. Telegraph. Investors have withdrawn $25 billion in the past 7 months. The Chinese economy contracted at its fastest pace since the Maoist era, and China entered into another period of deflation last month. Exports declined for the 6th straight month in October, and new home sales at the 100 biggest developers were down 27.5% compared with the same time last year. Putin's speech at virtual G20 full of false narratives, event ignored by Biden and Xi. Yahoo! Russian dictator Vladimir Putin used his online address to the virtual G20 summit to restate his false narrative about Ukraine's attack on the Donbass and Moscow's alleged pursuit of peace. He claimed that Russia has never refused peace talks and stated that the number of casualties during a war is always staggering. Putin has rarely traveled abroad since sending troops into Ukraine in February 2022 and has attended major international summits either online or not participated at all after the International Criminal Court, ICC, issued a warrant for his arrest. The Russian dictator did not attend the BRICS summit in South Africa in August and the G20 summit in India in September for fear of arrest. The West can no longer ignore Putin's murderous alliance with Iran. Telegraph. Russia and Iran are reportedly strengthening their defense partnership, with Russia offering Tehran unprecedented cooperation in missiles, electronics, and air defense. In return, Russia is seeking a halt in Ukrainian advances in the south and east of Ukraine, and is potentially receiving thousands of Iranian ballistic missiles. The US and Britain have expressed concern about the ramifications of this partnership, as they maintain extensive security interests in the Middle East and Europe. The US and UK have come under drone and missile attacks from Iranian-directed proxies, and attacks against them have increased this year. China's Xi meets top Russian lawmaker in sign of tight ties. Bloomberg. Chinese President Xi Jinping expressed his willingness to strengthen ties with Russia and jointly promote the development of the Belt and Road Initiative during a meeting with Speaker Vyacheslav Volodin of Russia's lower legislative house. Volodin reiterated Russia's adherence to the One China policy and its firm support for China in safeguarding territorial integrity. China has been providing diplomatic and economic support to Russia since the invasion of Ukraine, which has helped mitigate the effects of Western sanctions. The two nations have also reinforced their military bonds, with high-ranking military officials meeting at a security forum in Beijing. China has sought to position itself as a neutral broker in the conflict in Ukraine and has seen an increase in exports to Russia and fossil fuel imports from Russia. The US Navy is arming its stealth jets with stealth missiles. Watch out China. Telegraph. The U.S. Navy has announced that it will pay Lockheed Martin to integrate 4 new munitions on the Navy's Lockheed-made F-35C tailhook stealth fighters. The munitions include 2 long-range cruise missiles and 2 short-range precision missiles. The move is in anticipation of a possible Chinese invasion of Taiwan. The U.S. Navy would rely on subs, but these could run out of weapons quickly and would then need time to get back to a friendly port to rearm. Hong Kong's John Lee skipped APEC. Did the city win or lose? South China Morning Post. Hong Kong leader John Lee Kok-yew admitted that U.S. sanctions against him have impeded his ability to promote the city internationally. Lee's comments come after his absence from an important APEC summit in San Francisco. Sources familiar with the matter said that it would have been awkward and complicated if Lee had lobbied the Chinese government to ask the U.S. to allow him to attend the summit while he was sanctioned. The summit was seen as an opportunity for Hong Kong to maintain its standing internationally, show dignity and openness, and repair ties with America. Analysts believe that a more positive atmosphere between the U.S. and China could benefit U.S.-Hong Kong relations. U.S. exports of goods to Hong Kong dropped 13.6% in 2022, its exports of services were down 6.1%, and its foreign direct investment in the city marked a 3.3% decline in a year, according to figures from the Office of the United States Trade Representative. The $25.8 billion of exports in 2022 amounted to just 69% of 2018's $37.4 billion before the anti-government protests and the COVID-19 pandemic affected Hong Kong. The figure peaked in 2013 when exports climbed to $42.3 billion. Trade statistics could indicate a wider economic slowdown, but also suggest that ties could be better. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.